a dangerous territory for Iranian dissidents. We are not far from Iranian borders. In the past few years, Iranian regime's agents have assassinated or kidnapped numbers of opposition figures in the neighboring countries. In the past few weeks, scores of young Iranian protesters, many of them injured, crossed the border illegally and found refuge in neighboring countries. I'm on my way to meet one of them. For security reasons, we cannot reveal his whereabouts. Ashkan Morovati is one of the injured protesters.
I know every moment I'm at risk. I escaped through the mountainous border region in a very bad condition. I faced death every moment. I lost lots of blood. My whole body was shivering. I'm a professional athlete, but it was difficult to walk. I had shortage of breath.
In late October last year, the Kurdish city of Sanandaj in western Iran was one of the epicenters of protests against the regime. Here, in this video, Ashkan confronts the security forces, but he was shot multiple times in close range and beaten up.
We have lionesses and lions, girls and boys, who stayed up all night protesting in alleys, avenues and streets. When the security forces arrest protesters, 10 to 15 of them gang up and beat the detainees. Even themselves record the beating and publish it online to spread fear amongst people. I took off my shirt. I shouted, "Shoot me. I have no fear of you." My goal was to keep the Woman Life Freedom Uprising alive. I went there to die.
Ashkan ends up in an intensive care unit in a hospital.
Nearly hundreds of times I was beaten up with baton in my head and body. I felt I was going to die. All my body, including my neck, was hit.
To stop bleeding, Ashkan's medical team was forced to operate on him multiple times.
My leg's main artery was torn apart. I was bleeding heavily, and my body was full of pellet balls. Some of the pellet balls penetrated my lungs.
اشکان آوردیم برای آنژیوگرافی. این تنگی توی شریانشه که دکتر عبدالعلیان دارن برطرفش میکنن. اشکان چطوری؟ خوبی؟ اوکی.
The medical team were superb. They were loyal to their medical oath.
One night, the security forces stormed the hospital and took him from an intensive care unit room to a prison cell.
Moving a patient who is connected to an oxygen tank from an ICU unit to a prison cell, it means death. It means murder. In prison, my wounds were infected. I was rubbing salt on my open wounds to fight infections.
But his family, lawyer, and his medical team were extremely worried he may die in prison. The officials were also worried his death in custody may spark another mass protest again in Iranian Kurdistan.
I was released on a heavy bail for 20 days to go to a hospital, treat my wounds, and then surrender myself to the prison officials.
But instead of going to a hospital, Ashkan escaped Iran. The prosecutor accused Ashkan of muharaba, which means waging a war against the God, a crime punishable by hanging in Iran.
My mom begged me to leave. She said, if you stay, they execute you. I would never forgive you.
Ashkan was a professional boxer. But why do young Iranian men and women like him are willing to risk their future, their lives, to confront heavily armed security forces?
We want freedom and democracy. We want LGBTQ to live freely. The regime has imprisoned, tortured, raped, and killed everyone, including Muslims, Christians, Jews, and Baha'is.
During the past few months of protest in Iran, Many young children and relatives of the Islamic regime's officials and security forces have joined protesters. Ashkan's father was a member of Iran's Revolutionary Guards Corps.
Our slogan was Woman, Life, Freedom, demanding equality for men and women. Why so much injustice towards women in Iran? This was our demand, but the regime turned our peaceful protest into a war.
Ashkan escaped a certain death in Iran, but his traumatic experiences have followed him here.
My psychological state is so bad. To sleep an hour or two, I have to take 5 or 6 sleeping pills. I hope to be alive and go back to that square where I was shot. I want to chant again, woman, life, freedom, democracy and equality.
دموکراسی و برابری رو بدم.